Today's episode is brought to you by Patreon. If you're interested in supporting the show, go to patreon.com/JoshuaVelas and become a $2 backer today and get early access to the new episodes. I'll be leaving a link in the description down below, but for now, on to today's episode. You're listening to the Augmented Experience podcast. I'm your host, as usual, Joshua Velas. I'm a student, musician, and a gamer at heart. Join me as I sit down every week to talk about all the latest news in the technology, business, and video game world. I hope you guys enjoy. Alright, everybody, welcome back to the show. My name is Joshua Velas. I am your host as usual, and obviously welcome back to the show. Today's episode 146 of the show, and before we get started, we're going to do a little bit of house cleaning real quick, because you guys know we always like to do this around here, and it's just fun. And you guys already know we do it anyway, so we're going to do it, and we're going to jump right into it, because I really want to get as much time as I can to talk about this episode, because there's a lot on my mind about it, so let's talk about it. I do want to say thank you guys for coming back and listening. It really does mean a lot to me. You guys constantly keep downloading these episodes. You keep sharing them. You keep watching them on YouTube or listening to them wherever you like to listen to your podcast. So I greatly appreciate it. Obviously, hello to all the friends on YouTube and obviously everyone that listens on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to listen to your podcast, because I like giving you guys options of how you want to listen or watch the podcast. Like, I want to give you guys options, whether you like watching my face reactions or you like listening to the change in my voice, preferably if you like listening to the show while drive from work, while at work, or doing whatever you like to do, because I don't know what you like to do in your free time, but I greatly appreciate that you take time to either watch or listen to the show. So I greatly appreciate it, and you guys are awesome. Obviously, if you haven't, you can obviously click the like or dislike button on the YouTube, subscribe, notification bell, the usual jazz. If you guys like what you see, you don't like what you see, or you can tell me how you want me to improve in the comments down below. So I greatly appreciate that. I do also want to say thank you to the Patreon backers, because as I mentioned before, we do have 2 backers now. So hey, that's a win, man. We got 2 people that want to support me. So that's greatly appreciated, and I greatly appreciate you guys. Obviously, you get to enjoy your benefits of seeing the episodes early, and at the same time, I will be altering the Patreon backers and changing how those things operate. So we'll be going from there. Obviously, we have to finish those things, but they're a work in progress because they take a little bit of time. I do also want to say thank you to helping me get over 2,050 total downloads. We're only one shy of that, so hopefully we can get that, because I do want to try to break maybe 2,100 by the end of the year, because we obviously smashed the 2,000 goal before the end of the year. So maybe we can get 2,100 before the end of the year. Maybe, who knows? But thank you guys for all that. It really, really does mean a lot to me, and I greatly appreciate it. But now it's time that we talk about today's episode, because it was interesting to me that everybody voted on the Instagram page. If you haven't, obviously the Instagram link is down below. It was interesting to me that everybody voted for the other topic, which was talking about cyberpunk. However, I viewed this topic a little bit more important because of the terminology being used, and at the same time, it just reinforces my ideas that I have regarding tech reviews and questioning the objectivity sometimes about them. So what happened? Because obviously the title kind of gives it away. We're talking about the whole Nvidia scandal that happened, and what happened was, about maybe earlier last week, or I would say early this week, Hardware Unboxed, if you guys don't know who they are a Steve and I keep forgetting the other person's name, but it's a 2-man crew at Hardware Unboxed, and Steve is the one that everyone's referring to in this case. That Steve had received an email from Nvidia that I don't want to go into all of the details, because this has been shared all over the place and it has been resolved already. So I want to make this very clear. The situation has been resolved, but this doesn't mean that everything should just go back to normal the way they do, because it's very concerning. But this was the specific line that stuck to me, that's been running in my head for the last couple of days. that they went on their community tab and they said that Nvidia has officially decided to ban us from receiving GeForce Founders Edition's GPU review samples. Their reasoning is that we are focusing on rasterization instead of ray tracing. That they have said that they will revisit this should your editorial direction change. That part was the most damaging for me, because when someone, or specifically a corporation, sends you an item and they want your objective review, they do not have the right to dictate what you are allowed to say, unless if you signed an NDA and there's just things you can't talk about because you signed a document saying. But if they said you're allowed to review this, you're allowed to do whatever you want to this thing and provide your own honest, objective review of this product. You do not get the right to dictate how that review goes. There's a reason why I like what people like Mr. Mobile do, where they always say at the end of their videos that this is not a paid review. The company did not get early access to this video, nor do they get editorial rights to this video. So they do not get to edit this video. They do not get to say what I get to say. Like, you do not get to dictate the conversation. I do. I am the reviewer. I'm giving my objective thoughts on how I feel about this product. I will do my own testing. I will do what a quote unquote independent reviewer will do. And this has always been my biggest concern when it comes to doing tech reviews, because the fact that companies can do things like this, that has always been the issue for me, is that people will do whatever it takes to, I'd say, continue to be in the good graces of these companies. And that's always been a bit of an issue, because it's like, well, I do appreciate that you're doing the hustle. You got to get your money somehow. Like, especially a lot of people that do this for a living, that it makes sense. You want to be in the good graces of these companies because you want to keep doing review samples. You want to keep doing these early day one reviews. You want to be able to get these clicks, these views. You want to be able to get all this attention so you can generate revenue. However, there's days where I see these reviews and it makes me question the integrity sometimes of these reviewers, especially with what they talk about. And this has already been a heated debate in the tech space for a while now. Like, we're not going to pretend like this is new. We're not going to pretend like this is some breakthrough revelation that it's brand new, that, never been talked about, never been groundbroken. Like, we knew about this for a long time, that sometimes people will not be the most objective as they possibly can be. They'll be honest and upfront with you, or at least they should be, that they have a very swayed opinion towards one direction over another rather than trying to be objective. That also can be depending on your audience. This is what a smart creator does, is that they ask their audience, what do you want me to talk about? What do you want me to focus on? And I feel like that's such an important thing, because it gives it away. Like, we're not making examples of people, but let's bring up someone like, Taylor's of Tech. He's obviously an Apple sheep. He's referred to as the Apple sheep. He self-proclaims himself as an Apple sheep. He will always talk about Apple products and view them in a positive light, because that's how he is. That doesn't mean that he won't call Apple out on their BS, because he does. Whether you want to believe it or not, yeah, he does call out their BS on occasions when they genuinely do something stupid. Granted, some people can draw, correlation to people like iJustine, where it just seems like Justine will always say everything is great about Apple, or Jonathan Morrison, that they'll always say that these are people that will always say Apple is great, that there is no flaws, that there is no issues with their products. Even though, yes, I do think they have their moments of brilliance, because, like, they're people. Like, they'll be honest that they have their opinions, they have their own preference, they have their own bias, but they'll at least be honest about it. And I respect that you're honest about it, because that has always been the issue with a lot of reviews, is they claim to be objective. However, they're really not. And it's very obvious. Prime example, like, Jay's 2 cents has been the big talking points regarding the whole thing with reviewing the 6000 series GPUs from AMD. But how does this correspond with this situation with Nvidia? How does it relate to this idea of, should your editorial direction change? The reason I said this is very damaging and very damning towards Nvidia, which they had to backpedal hard, and we'll talk about that part as well because I have thoughts on that. But that is the most damning part out of everything, because you can go through, you can watch the WAN show. I'll leave a link in the description down below so you can go watch Linus and Luke's take on the matter. But to me, that part alone is the most damning, because it's showing that Nvidia wants to have control of the conversation. Like, you should not be allowed to not agree with us or agree with our philosophy and how we view our products. And that's just wrong, because you are allowed to have your own opinion. That's the whole point of the process, is you are allowed to do your own investigation. You are allowed to do your own review, because it's your review of a product. You're the one who is basically testing the claims of the company and seeing if they hold up, because that's obvious. It's 101 on marketing. Just being objectively honest, it's marketing 101, because every company is always going to show the best graphs, show the best information about their products, and they're going to say this thing is the greatest thing since sliced bread. That's just the reality of the matter, that they're always going to do this. And that's the point of a reviewer, as an independent reviewer specifically, that you should be as objective as possible and test the claims of the manufacturer. Are they holding up their end of the bargain, or are they highballing a little bit too much? And for me, I always like the guys at Hardware Unboxed. I love the work that Steve does, because Steve has been very consistent with his takes on matters. He has been honest with his audience, because he's asked them straight up, do you prefer to talk about ray tracing, or do you want me to talk about rasterization? Because that is what they do. They primarily focus on rasterization, but they will also do a separate video talking about ray tracing, and they separate it. They're like, yes, the initial review will be purely on raw performance. How does this thing perform to the competition? Because that's what people care about. They don't care about these fancy features like ray tracing and things like that, because yeah, it's cool, but a lot of people don't like the performance hit that comes with ray tracing. And yes, I get it. With the new 3000 series, ray tracing has definitely been improved. With DLSS 2.0 has definitely made ray tracing a much more viable option to play with. However, this doesn't mean that it's perfect, because the performance hit is still annoying to deal with, and a lot of people don't want to deal with it. So they're just like, okay, what's the raw numbers? How does this thing perform? Because we want to know what are we gaining? Like, how much performance are we gaining with our new parts? And that's what people care about. And for me, it's always been about rasterization. I personally prefer talking about rasterization more than ray tracing, because I've told people ray tracing is a pure gimmick. You should not buy a GPU just because of ray tracing. You should buy it because of how good it performs. Like, what is the performance gain? Is it 30, 50%? Like, granted, a 50% gain is probably bonkers, but I'd rather talk about actual performance gain rather than something that I would say still doesn't matter so much. Yes, I do agree that companies are doing better at incorporating ray tracing into their games, but I feel like it just causes way too much issues, because then you get situations like Cyberpunk where you have to include it and the game looks amazing with ray tracing, yet it's almost unrunnable because of how difficult it is to run with ray tracing. But that's why DLSS 2.0 is such a great thing. And I agree. Nvidia has done a wonderful job with that technology. Granted, I also like using Nvidia Broadcast. I also like using the streaming features that come with the Nvidia graphics cards, because I like using those features. Like, that's how I live stream, because I primarily use the Nvidia drivers, because I do admit the Nvidia encoders are really good. They're definitely, at least in my opinion and in my experience, because I have never used an AMD GPU to do streaming, that the Nvidia option has worked flawlessly every time, and I'm able to stream my games with no issues. And obviously, if you watch me stream before, you know the stream works. It just works. Granted, the audio and everything is done separately, because you know, my Shure SM7B, obviously my new camera and things like that. But that has always been my opinion, is that for streaming and for video editing, I will always prefer using an Nvidia GPU because of the encoders, because I know the value that comes with it. But when you're doing a review talking about pure game performance, testing all these games against other competition and other GPUs, that you want to see how it performs. And I think that's just my problem when you have a company say, oh, just because you don't agree with us and agree with our claims then we're going to blacklist you. And I think that's just horribly wrong in every sense of the word, because this promotes unhealthy reviews. This promotes people not really wanting to tell the truth sometimes, that it just makes things feel like that really you kind of just want to make a sponsored video. You don't want a review, you just want a sponsored video. And I feel like that is the problem that is happening with reviews, is this whole sense of differentiating a review versus a sponsored video. Because yes, by a court of law, you are supposed to say if this is a sponsored video or not. You do not get an option. If you are being sponsored, if a company is basically giving you the script to read, then you have to say this is a sponsored video at the very beginning, and make sure that you even put in the video itself that this is a sponsored video by such and such, that you're going to be talking about their products, you're going to be promoting their product, you're going to be doing all the talking points that they ask you to talk about. You have to make it clear by a court of law that this is a sponsored video. And I feel like there's times where people don't do that because they find loopholes, because that's just how the legal system works, is that you can find loopholes around it, because that's just how things are, is you can find loopholes because they don't seem that difficult to find. But the fact that we are in this position where companies are wanting to try to dictate the conversation being had about their products is concerning, because this just promotes false information. This could lead to a lot of bad situations that a lot of people aren't happy about. And I agree, you should not be happy about this. Like, heck, I literally have the email that Hardware Unboxed received regarding the situation as a, backpedal. And I do want to share that with you guys, because I feel like it's very important that we talk about this. So here's the email that Nvidia sent out to Steve. Hi, Steve. Thanks for your note. I just wanted to say again how sorry I am for my original email. I overstepped my bounds, and it's as simple as that. I love seeing all the ways reviewers test and report on our products, and I value your contributions. Suggesting that I would withhold samples because I do not agree with your commentary is simply inexcusable and cross the line. I find myself, my colleagues, or actually, he says, I failed myself, my colleagues, and the amazing community of reviewers I consider my friends. You all work so hard in service of the gaming industry we love. You deserved better from me. I hope you will forgive my mistake and give me the opportunity to be of service to you in the future. It would be great if you can share this with your fans so they will know how I feel. Thanks, BDR. Yes. Am I going to question if he's sorry or not? No, because I can't do that. I don't know this person. I don't know him personally, so I cannot make that kind of judgment call. I personally can't. I just can't. But this definitely does come off as a backpedal. We're not going to pretend. This is obviously a PR move, a good PR move to make right with the community, because they know the people at Hardware Unboxed will always be honest and transparent, that they will share these kind of conversations with us as viewers. And to me, it's just a bit concerning, because like I said, the fact that this happened to begin with is the biggest issue, because this is setting a precedent. Whether you want to believe it or not, this is a precedent that a company will blacklist someone just because they don't agree with your opinion. And think about it, this has happened before. It has. It happened when Steve reviewed the 2060 and how the 2060 was not a good value. Let's just be honest. In comparison, it isn't. Nowadays, I think it's a better value than what it was before. I get it. A lot of people say that the 2060 Super is the one that doesn't have that much value, especially when you can get a 5700 XT for the same price. Getting a 2060 Super doesn't make sense. Granted, I have a 2060 Super. I like using it, but that's just me. But to me, it's a bit concerning with this whole situation, because it just doesn't sit right with me. It doesn't sit right that this will probably scare people into not maybe telling the whole truth. Maybe they might want to tell half truths. And the problem with telling a half truth is it's only half of the truth. Granted, if you want my personal perspective of how I view half truths, I view half truths as a lie, because it's not the truth. If you don't tell the truth, it's a lie. You can't tell half of the truth because there's a lie. So it's not the truth. It basically invalidates the whole situation. And like I've mentioned, that's my personal opinion on the matter, and I can have a long discussion with somebody about why I view things that way. But I will make it clear that that's my opinion. I will always be honest and upfront with you as viewers, as listeners, that I will always tell you if something is my opinion or if something is objective truth or objective fact. Because if it's objective fact, then you can't argue it because it's the facts. It's what's in front of you. You cannot say this is wrong because it's right in front of you. Like, you just can't. If I was to tell you the objective fact 2 + 2 is 4, it's an objective fact because that's what they equal. Like, an opinion would be, I think 2 + 2 is equal to fish. That's an opinion. It's not true, but it's also, but I make it clear that that's my opinion. You get what I'm saying? Like, there's a very clear black and white situation here. And what worries me is that some reviewers might look at the situation in a good way and a bad way. And that's just my biggest concern, is how people will view this situation. Will they view it as a precedent to basically stick up to these companies and teach them, no, you do not get to dictate the reviews. We are the reviewers. We don't owe you anything. We do not owe you anything. We don't owe you praise. Like, yes, you send us these graphics cards. We don't owe you anything. We will tell you how it is because we are loyal to our fan base. Our viewers, the actual consumers, they are the ones whose loyalty, like, we have to answer to you guys because you guys are the ones asking us the questions. The company, I would say in this case, is getting a fair exchange because they're getting free marketing. That's essentially what this is. It's the same thing with people letting, like, other people stream their games. Like, companies like, you know, say I get to stream Red Dead Redemption 2 early. It's free marketing. It basically is showing people, hey, I'm playing this game. I think it's fun. You should go buy it. Like, and be honest about it, or do reviews, or get early review copies. That it's free marketing. Like, you will tell people, like, how you feel about this game. Is there issues? What are the issues? What are the high spots? What are the low spots? That you talk about it, and then you let the consumer make the informed decision. You give the information and you let the consumer make the decision. You do not make the decision for the consumer. You can tell them that from your perspective, this is not a good value of something because there's other things in the category that are similar price, but better in different ways. But you present the options. You give the consumer options. You let them pick. You don't tell them what to pick because that's the point. Like, your job is to present the information and be done with it. But granted, you should also follow up when there's new information. That is the job of the reviewer. The consumer should also be smart when purchasing their products because they should be actively paying attention to what they're buying. They shouldn't be dumb. Like, I'm just being honest with you. I'm not being mean. I'm just telling you the truth and telling you how it is, bud. Like, if you are buying something, it is your responsibility to be educated on what are the pros, what are the cons, and will this do what you want it to do? Or is there something that is a better fit for you? That is the job of the consumer. You should be doing your homework the same way the reviewer should be doing their homework because that is the point. It is a cycle that should always repeat itself. When there's new information, you should look up said new information. Like, that's just how it is. And yes, I get it. A lot of people are lazy. They don't want to do this, but it's necessary. This is how you get a healthy, stable, and thriving system to work because the company makes money because somebody is reviewing their products and they think overall it's a great product. It may have some downsides, but the company will take those downsides and they will improve their product the next time around. The consumer will know what is wrong with this product, but if they still think it's worth it, they'll go out and buy it and support the company, and the company will be like, hey, we're getting revenue. People, yes, they agree that these flaws are bad. They pointed them out. We're improving them, but the consumer still likes our product because they still find it valuable. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is how things work. This is how a healthy and stable economy functions. This is how a healthy, I would say, trade is established between the consumer and the company. The reviewer is the middleman because the company is sending them things to basically review them, give their honest takes, and share it to the consumer. And if the consumer is like, hey, I like that, I'm going to go buy that, then yeah, then that's what happens. It's a cycle that is healthy and it feeds itself. But when the company tries to dictate what the reviewer or the middleman does, that is where the problem happens, because at that point, you are no longer getting an objective take of something. You are basically getting what the company wants you to hear. You're basically getting manipulated. Or, you know, if you watch the movie, The Interview, then you're basically getting honey-dicked. And that has always been the funny thing, is that that's essentially what's happening, is you're basically getting debated. Like, you're basically getting fed pure PR. You're basically getting fed a press release. And that has always been my issue, is when companies think that reviewers are incompetent, that they don't know what they're talking about. And on some levels, I would say that sometimes reviewers know their products better than the actual manufacturer themselves. And some people say, oh, that's blasphemous. You can't say that. How can somebody that didn't make the product know anything about the product? And I'm like, well, you have to also be mindful, like people from Gamers Nexus and Hardware Unboxed have found multiple issues with GPUs that the manufacturer did not know about until they themselves went through it and pointed out the flaw to the manufacturer, and the manufacturer had to go back and fix it. That shows that this is what we're dealing with. That this is the cold hard reality, is that the manufacturers know that they need reviewers, because the reviewers will do the job that needs to be done, not only for the consumers, but also for the manufacturers. And that has always been my issue, that the manufacturers have tried to dictate the conversation, and that is not a good way to go about it. And people could be afraid of speaking the truth now because of something like this. Granted, yes, Nvidia has backpedaled because this was not a good move for them, but other companies will still keep going forward with this kind of behavior, and this is unacceptable. If you agree, then you should be doing this and standing up for people that get afflicted by situations like this throughout any community. Nintendo is a prime example right now. So if you are a Nintendo fanboy, you should be sticking up to what is happening, because Nintendo is doing something that is not acceptable. They're not. Nvidia, what you did was unacceptable. Granted, you backpedaled. That's good. You only backpedaled because the community got on your ass. You get what I'm saying? That this is just the reality of things. And you, as a consumer, should be aware of what is going on. You should be informed, because situations like this are always happening. And that's probably the job of people like me, as being community commentators, that we share this information so that you are informed of what is going on. But that's all I got for you guys on the matter. I get it. Nvidia has backpedaled. The situation has been quote unquote fixed, but this is far from over, and this sets an unhealthy precedent that I'm afraid going forward will be a bigger issue. But only time will tell, because I cannot predict the future. But we can only see what happens. But you should be aware that this stuff is happening. Don't be a fool. Pay attention to what's in front of you. But I love you guys to death. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. It really does mean a lot to me. You guys constantly keep liking and you keep sharing these episodes. You keep downloading them. I appreciate that you guys take time out of your busy days to listen to this episode or watch the episode. It really, really does mean a lot to me, and I greatly appreciate it. If you guys do like today's episode, you can leave a like, dislike. You can subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a comment down below of how you felt or what is your take on the matter. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to listen to your podcast, you can obviously download it and share it with your friends and family and whoever you want to share it to, because it does really, I really do appreciate it, and it does help me out. Thank you guys for all the love and support. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode, and I will see you guys next week. Please have a wonderful weekend. Please continue to be safe. Don't do anything dumb, guys. Continue to be safe out there, because the world is still a weird place. Please continue to take care of everyone around you and be respectful of those around you, and love everyone that you have around you, because you just don't know how things will turn out. But I love you guys to death. Please continue to be safe, guys, and have a wonderful weekend. Bye, guys. Hey there. Thank you for listening to today's episode. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day and listening to today's episode. If you're interested in supporting the show, whether it be financially, clicking the follow button, or just sharing the episode, it all works for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for your time, and I love you guys to death.